Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This video is all about trellising cucumbers. We had an 80-degree rain today. Soil temperatures are up above 60. It's a perfect time to start planting cucumbers. Now, trellising is really important because I recommend 100%, unless you have tons of room, growing all your cucumbers vertically, even if they're the bush type. I'll show you an example of the bush type cucumbers and the trellis I'm using for that, and then examples of how I have cucumbers in the ground and the different trellises that I have for them. Again, you want to grow vertically. You could grow cucumbers right in this space, but they're going to grow, depending on the variety. If it's like a straight 8 or market more, it's going to grow 8 feet, 10 feet. It's going to take up all that space. You wouldn't be able to put in a tomato plant. You wouldn't be able to grow kale or garlic because it's all covered in cucumbers. So this is, and I talk about these all the time, this is a 10-foot closet rack from Home Depot. 2 solid stakes going into the ground, which means they're 3.5 feet tall. You want to make sure the stakes going in at least 12 inches, but 18 to 24 inches. Really getting the stakes in there because cucumbers are going to get really heavy and you don't want your trellising to collapse. One question I get all the time is, well, if the vine is going to grow 8-10 feet tall, how am I going to pick it? And it's a pretty simple answer once you know. So it's growing, it's at 6 feet, let's say it gets to here, and then it keeps going up to 10 feet. Well, when a vine gets to about 6 feet, just guide it so that it grows out this way, and when it gets long enough, tuck it back down and then grow down. Even though you're growing it vertically, you can go up, and then you can bring it back down, and you can even go up again if you have to. Now in my area, cucumbers will get to a good size, but then they usually get killed off by different problems. I'll talk about a strategy at the end on how you can keep cucumbers going continuously through the year. Don't fight a dying plant. Have backups ready, which is basically the idea, but I'll talk more about it. You could set up something if you want to keep it simple. These are 8-foot posts. Again, if you're going to grow something, if you're going to grow cucumbers on something like this, you really want to get these down 18 to 24 inches. Just string across and you would grow them straight up. Now in a 4-foot, 5-foot space, I tend to pack cucumbers more closely together. Technically, if you're just getting started, you want like one every 3 feet, but I don't mind putting them closer than that. Those are beans actually, but if they were cucumber plants, you could drop 5 in just like that. They would trellis up this 6 feet. As the plants get bigger, I just add in more string, as they grow. I've tried growing them up the cages that you can get for tomato plants, and they work, but most of your standard cucumbers are going to get too big. You could try this for something bush type. Those are Brussels sprouts in there. I love the cattle panel, which I've talked a lot about. Now, you might say, well, why are you starting your cucumber series for 2020 with trellising rather than planting? I have a pretty extensive planting video that I did on setting up the hole, putting in transplants and all that. I will link to that. I did that last year. I just don't feel like repeating it basically. Cattle panel is 15 feet long. It's about 4 feet wide, $22 to $24. It's really worth it. A pain to get home, but if you can do that, it works really well. Extremely sturdy. Nice space in there. You can, reach in, do the tending you want. Sometimes when you have the smaller spacing, cucumbers can grow in there and actually they get stuck. I'll show you an example of that in a second. Up the right side, I have tomatoes. Over on this side, I've put in 1 cucumber plant, or 1 planting. There's actually 2 plants in there, national pickling. You can put 1 to 2 per hole. All depends on how much maintenance you want to do and how much time you want to spend on caring. If you don't have a lot of time, go with 1 plant, space them out more. But the pickling cukes are going to come up this side, they're going to meet in the middle, and I can just go ahead and pick a cucumber salad right out of this space. Right over here is some 2x4 inch fencing. These are T-posts in the ground. These make great trellises for cucumbers. Again, a bush type that gets about 6 feet would be great. If you're growing something bigger, you can just start it up here and you can guide it through here as you wish. Nothing's planted in that space yet. Now, I often get asked with the cattle panel, are you going to put up the cattle panel east to west or north to south? And it really doesn't matter. Going one way is going to create more shade versus having it open. My sun is back here behind the camera, so sun will go right into there through that cattle panel if I was growing in there. It's really up to you. Sometimes you want shade because you have crops that don't like the intensity of the sun midsummer, so you can use the shade to your advantage. So again, we have 4 feet wide, and in here I have 2 cukes, 1 cucumber, 2 cucumbers. So I'm packing them in 4 to 5 right there. They're going to grow up this side. This is about 8 feet tall. The cucumbers will hang down. Perfect. And then over here on this side I have even more. 1, 2, and 1. Now, another important reason for growing vertically is because as they're growing up, you can get in with a sprayer and just spray and tend so much more easily by having something set up like this. If they were sprawled on the ground, it's much more difficult. I think disease spreads a little more quickly if powdery mildew is something that comes to your area. Bugs like it a little bit better. This way you can get in, you can spray, you can manage, and it looks really cool. Now, if you don't want to build an arch, you can take the cattle panel and do something like this, and this is 15 feet. You could plant this whole area with cucumbers as you wish. And again, if you have the bigger non-bushing variety, you would just come up here, and then you could actually weave it lengthwise all the way across. It's, you know, it's really based on what you like. T-posts hold it together. Again, you could grow on fencing. That's pretty standard. You could build something like this. These are just 3 8-foot posts, TP'd off at the top and sunk well. It's nice and sturdy. And maybe a piece of string in the middle to let the tendrils grab onto, but they'll grow right up there nicely. All right, the rain is starting to come down. Hopefully I don't get any drops on the lens. Here's another example. These are 4-foot closet wire racks. These are bush type cucumbers. They get about 6 feet, 2 in a hole, and it'll be perfect. I can just send them up here. Any excess growth I can just let come back down again. These are tied off to a cinder block. I didn't use any posts. Nice and sturdy. I mean, it moves obviously, but it's weighted down. The weight of your cucumbers is not going to tip this over. I like these, and I always forget what they're called, but they're just, you know, basic trellising pieces. I got them from a local hardware store. I didn't get them online. And they're cool because they're solid, they weren't expensive, and they collapse. And you can open them up to whatever you want. Like, you could put one right there, you could put another one spaced closely, and then another one spaced closely. And you have all that height to trellis melons, cantaloupe, cucumbers. I like doing it this way. I open them up a little bit more. One triangle would go right there. Cucumbers would start on the right, go up, down, and then I would put another set in there, you know, when this is all set up. Here's one more use of the cattle panel. You can put them in raised beds like that. These are true raised beds, nice and high. I think they're 12 inches tall, 3 foot by 6 feet. Drop the cattle panel in, fill it with dirt or whatever. It presses the panel out. It's not going to go anywhere. And I'm starting to grow some cucumbers up the side. So let's talk about planting strategy. Again, I will link the video that shows you how I set up the planting hole, how I plant them, all that. It'll be at the end screen, iCard, and into the description. So you don't want to put out 15 cucumber plants at once, or you're going to have like 500 cucumbers. So put some out now. That's basically what I'm doing. You see that they were different heights and sizes. When this cucumber and some of the other ones maybe double or triple in size and they start setting fruit, I'm going to drop more seeds into cups, put them in a shady area outside, and let them begin to germinate. And the reason you do that is because you're going to have your backup plants, and you're going to have a second round of cucumbers that'll be maturing while these start dying out. In my zone, disease comes, spider mites come, cucumber beetles come. I can manage them down, get great production out of the plant. But when the plants are beat up and they've done a lot of producing, rather than try and save them, just yank them out, put in your new wave of cucumbers. Sometimes they defend off the diseases and pests better, and sometimes you get them planted when the life cycle of the pest is going away, when the cycle of the diseases going away, and then those cucumbers take off and they'll fill up something like this, and they'll get you cucumbers from July into August. Maybe you put some cucumbers in later August, they get you cucumbers into September, early October before the frost comes. So you really want to have a plan with cucumbers that you don't try and keep a dying plant going on. You can, but you're just not going to get a lot of production. Have the backup plants. Put new plants in about every 4 weeks, and you'll have a continued harvest of cucumbers throughout the whole season. I hope that makes sense. Here's another option too. When you get this tall with something that's kind of flimsy like that, if I didn't put these wooden stakes in there to support it, it would just fall over and collapse if I was putting cucumbers up there. These I'm growing lima beans. But if you're going to go something taller and the wire is not as strong as the cattle panel, you definitely want to make sure that you put the stakes in. Hope this gives you some idea, some confidence to grow vertically with cucumbers, and gives you a strategy to plant over the season so that you can battle better pests, diseases, but more importantly, you'll just get cucumbers from really June all the way into September. Thanks so much for watching, and please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.